All right, welcome back, people. As you can see on the title, it's that time of year again where Doc's heart tries not to explode as they overwork her preparing for Dragon Con. And I do lots of interviews of nominees, so you can sort of hear what's out there. So, hey, all you crazy sci fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So, without further ado, first let me introduce the topic, the Dragon Award. It's a fan voted award that recognizes outstanding achievement in science fiction and fantasy literature, comics, gaming, and filmed entertainment. The award is given out every year at Dragon Con in Atlanta, Georgia, and has been going strong since 2016. It is entirely fan run. The nominations are voted on electronically, so participation is available to everyone, requiring no membership or other fees. Right now, there are 15 categories: best science fiction novel, best fantasy novel, to include paranormal, best YA and middle grade novel, best military science fiction and fantasy novel, the best category, if you ask me, best alternative history novel, best media tie-in novel, best horror novel, best comic book, best graphic novel. Still don't know how those are different. Best sci-fi and fantasy TV series, best sci-fi and fantasy movie, best sci-fi and fantasy PC/console game, sci-fi and fantasy mobile game, best sci-fi and fantasy board game, if you're noticing a theme, and last but not least, best sci-fi or fantasy miniatures, collectible card, or role-playing game. So obviously the nominees are out, and we're trying to get all the guests we can. But first, we have Mr. John Henry, who publishes as Jack Campbell. Can you introduce yourselves to our listeners and readers, or listeners and viewers?
Yes, as said, my real name's John Henry. I write under the pen name Jack Campbell. I'm a retired Navy. I worked as a ship driver, primarily starting out. Did a lot of intelligence work and just about everything else. So deploying with Marines, all that. Help makes my Marines realistic. Um, and
I,
once I retired from the Navy, I started writing, and eventually I got good enough at it to get published, and that's where we are.
I will say that you're. I don't know if you would classify your books as hard science, but I know people that are scientists that say it does count in their opinion. So, do you classify yours as hard sci-fi?
They certainly could be. I think it helps. Forces me to write better because I can't do shortcuts if I try to take into account those things. I consider, the hard science is kind of like logistics in the military. If you leave it out,
Yeah.
it's not really realistic, right? So,
I agree. I don't normally like hard sci-fi. They lose me with all the techno babble that goes over my head. For a sci-fi writer, you'd think I was better at science in school, but math and was not, or science weren't my thing. It was all about history and English. Yours is very accessible. The science as you explain it, like I can understand it, and you know, for a grunt, that's good. You made a grunt understand science. That's good stuff right there. All right. So, what were you nominated for this year?
I was nominated for Best Military SF Novel, and that's The Lost Fleet Resolute, which is the 13th book in the sixth book Lost Fleet series. Just keeps going.
And we wanted to keep going. Um, so can you tell us a little bit about Resolute, the novel that you were nominated for? And while you do that, I'm going to throw that cover up on the screen.
It's as I said, it's the 13th book in the series, and it gets more and more difficult as you go to keep giving the readers the characters that they want, the continuity with that, remaining true to the situation, and yet also not treading the same ground. It's important, I think, to keep finding new stories to tell, and Resolute's an example of that, where they're now going out, reaching out to different alien species. And so it's got the puzzles posed by that and the threats posed by that, as both the aliens and the humans trying to figure out what exactly do you mean by this word? Are you dangerous to us? All those kinds of things. And then there's also dangers within the fleet itself to deal with, because not everyone wants to even interact with the aliens. So there is certainly fleet action involved, but there's also all these non-combat problems which any commander is going to face in that kind of environment and have to deal with.
Okay, so this does this follow the same main character as the original series, or did you split off with different main
No,
character for this one?
this is a continuation of the original Lost Fleet narrative, using uh, Blackjack Geary, the Admiral, as the primary character, and his usual supporting cast. There are some new characters added on, um, and I kind of merged the storylines from the Lost Stars series with this as well, at least temporarily. So you've got Commodore Bradamont in there and Colonel Ruggiero, um, representing the independent star system of Midway. So it's got the same characters people are used to, as well as a few new ones brought in. But anybody looking to meet, say, Master Chief Giannini again is not going to be disappointed.
Okay. And so did you use some of the same aliens? Because I remember, and I don't want to spoil it because they're, if you haven't read the series, you should start from book one. It's amazing. The narrator did a great job too. You can actually hear your narrator get better over because your series wasn't published rapidly like people that read indie books are used to, because you were traditionally published. So there's some gaps, and you can almost hear the narrator improve to what everyone knows him as today, which I think is awesome. But did you when you created those aliens, did you expect, because I'm in your fan group on Facebook, obviously, so disclaimer, if you want to guess who I voted for, but when you were creating the aliens, did you expect the reaction that you got from some of your readers?
Um, I was very pleased by it. I was happy that they saw the aliens, because you're kind of going out on a limb when you're making your aliens really alien, and trying to find, okay, what is it about these strange creatures that people can identify with. But I made a strong effort to make each alien species distinct, as well as not human. They think differently. And so this big puzzle for humans dealing with this is trying to figure out, what exactly do they want? What do they expect from us? How are they going to react to different things? And I've been very gratified by the response. There's this idea that readers want things kept simple. You know, all all aliens act like humans, and you can't get into difficult concepts or anything. But I found that readers actually want to be given interesting ideas and more complex things to deal with. Uh, it's like real life, you're trying to figure out what someone means by a certain word. Well, this is kind of magnifying that. What does that alien mean by a certain word? How are they even looking at the universe? Resolute gets more into that, this question of, how does this truly alien species look at basic concepts in ways that differ from humans? And it's fun to deal with that.
You also did that with regard to the various cultures, because there was some cultural drift in your various polities in the books that gave them very different characters even inside the human race, which I thought was pretty fascinating. Was there anything particularly that inspired the way you organized the nation states in this universe?
Well, a lot of it was history, and some of it was just experience. When you're in the military, you get exposed to a lot of different people, both from within your own country and also people from other countries, other cultures. And you see how they see things, how they think things should just be done as a matter of course, and the ways in which those differ. And then you study, like totalitarian regimes, like the syndicate worlds. The fact that in the syndicate worlds, history means lies, because historians are people who the government requires to update history every time they want to change history to say whatever they want. So an historian is a liar. And that's something, it's easy to understand in today's world that people would get that impression. So there is a historian character in this, and he's um, when he first encounters some of these former syndicate people, they're very suspicious of him, because to them he must be a bad guy because he's a historian. And uh, that kind of thing is, you draw from your experience with people, and see the different ways they come up with to cope or not cope with situations.
Okay, so what would your 30-second elevator pitch for this series be? Because obviously this is late in the series, so for someone looking to get into it, they're going to be starting with all the goodness that is book one. But what would your elevator pitch for the universe be?
For the universe. Um,
Yes, sir.
wow, that's a tough one. It's a big universe at this point. Um, Humanity has exploded out to the stars. Some parts of it have gone in totalitarian directions and want to take over the rest. The main character, Blackjack Geary, becomes an inadvertent hero in the first battle of a war, simply because he does his job. He's presumed dead, but he's frozen in survival sleep. So 100 years later, he's woken up, discovers the same war is still going on because lots of stars, they can just keep fighting. Uh, and it's become this horrible, bloody affair. And they think he's the greatest hero of all time, and they want him to save the day. And that's pretty much
So what
continued.
that's succinctly the universe. I agree with that. But this will be one of the few interviews for the Dragon that I've actually read all of the books, so it does make this part easier. What made you decide on 100 years as the line to have him come back in the
I,
future?
I wanted it to be close enough in time that he wouldn't be totally unmoored from technology, for example, um, but not so far off that everything could be too hard. I wanted everyone he knew to have died, because that's part of the trauma he's dealing with. He's totally alone in a future where everyone he knew has passed away, either in the war or just from old age. But also, again, close enough that he can still identify with the culture and sees the ways that this long wars has thrown it off track. And so it's understandable to him. So 100 years, yeah, it was kind of arbitrary, but it seemed a good balancing act between all those things.
Okay. So back on track to the specifically, now that we've talked about what the book is and what the universe is, for the Dragon Award for nomination, was that something? Well, first off, how were you nominated? How were you informed that you were nominated? Did they call? Everyone
I,
has a slightly different story. So,
yeah, I got an email. It said, "Hey, you're one of the nominees. Don't tell anybody yet." Okay, fine.
oh, okay.
Can't tell anybody. Why'd you tell me? Um, that's just an email.
Okay. So what was your first reaction when you got that letter saying you were nominated?
Um, I was happy. I was happy. I've never campaigned for nominations for awards. So I knew this must be a real grassroots thing where the readers of the books had decided they wanted to nominate it for this. So it's a really nice feeling that your readers feel that way about your work. Like I think just about every writer, I always feel like I'm not. Maybe someday I'll get this writing thing down, get it doing it right, and whenever somebody says you are doing it right, that feels good.
Okay. So that's so is there anything special your family's going to have to do if you win so that way like you don't float away on a balloon of ego?
Oh no, I am a married man. My wife keeps my ego firmly grounded. That's one of the things they do.
Okay. So what do you feel like this award means to you since it's not something that you actively campaigned for? It was more organic um from your fan base. Like what does that mean to you then as an author?
Well, it means if I get it, it will truly reflect um, the opinions of a lot of readers, and well, that will feel really good to know that this just came out of their opinion of my work.
So is this your first nomination?
For the Dragon Award, yes,
Yes, sir. Okay.
yes.
I'm so you've won or been nominated for other awards then I take it?
The only other awards I've received to date, I've got several analog awards for my shorter fiction, and let's see, my YA novel, The Sister Paradox, won an East Epic YA ebook award. But those, I think, are the only actual awards I've gotten of any sort for writing.
Okay. So, oh, you answered that one already. So, what do you think about the categories? Do you expect that to stay the same for the Dragon? Do you follow that at all?
Well, they've tried to recognize an awful lot of creative work. You got to give them full props for that. If they added anything, I've seen the suggestion for best cover artist, and I think that would be good. The artist, I think, should be recognized, particularly when they do something good, and particularly like with Resolute, this cover is actually a scene from the book. Oh my God. So often the scenes are just generic or some marketing thing. But artists would be good, and maybe I thought somebody had an award for best series, and that might be a good idea. Someone whose individual works may not have ever gotten past the barrier, but maybe the whole series, when it's all wrapped up, people can say, "Man, that worked good," because that's an accomplishment, I think, to keep readers fully engaged and give them a satisfying ending at the end of several books. It's quite a challenge. So I respect anyone who's been able to do that.
Yeah, I could see the cover, and I'd also like to see something for short story and anthologies because, you know, for a lot of us, short stories were how we came into the genre. So it'd be nice for that to be get some recognition. I think. Sadly,
Yeah.
it's a dying art. So obviously, if you're voting, you'd be voting for your own work. But of the other books on the list, were there any that stood out to you on the other nominees?
Well, it's a strong field. If I had to name one, it would probably be the Insurrection book. But it's a very strong field. So
Okay,
if I had to vote,
that's a lot to choose from.
yeah, if I had to vote for just one other book than my own, then it would probably be the Insurrection book.
Okay. So we promise you, dear listener, that these interviews would be not that long. But before we let you go, we have to ask this one for you, sir. Uh, if you win, how are you going to celebrate that achievement?
Oh, it may involve alcohol. A little bit.
As all the good ones do.
Yes, it may indeed. Not necessary for a good time, I know, but it helps.
Okay. And so if you win the award, do you have any plans on how you'll display it?
Oh, it's I'll make some room on the shelves in my office, and so I can see it when I look around and inspire me, hopefully.
Okay. All right. So was there anything about Resolute, and obviously this is a quick form interview, and we're going to have you back for a longer form one at the end of the month to talk, well, the end of September, to talk about the series writ large. But is there anything about Resolute that you wanted to tell us before we wrap this up?
Well, I think it's a good book. I put a lot of effort into keeping the stories fresh and the characters new and everything believable. So hopefully readers will continue to like that.
All right. And how can listeners find you on the wild, wild interwebs?
Well, I have my website at jack-campbell.com. And on Facebook, there's a group called Fans of the Lost Fleet, which covers both the Lost Fleet and anything else that people, any of my other works that people might want to talk about. Those are the two primary means. And of course, I have a personal presence on Facebook as John Henry.
Okay, and as usual, dear listener, all of those show notes will be linked below, as well as the information on the Dragon Award nomination, how you can register, how you can vote. It's still not too late. So if you haven't voted yet, get out there and speak your piece. You won't regret it, and dive into this universe. It's a lot of fun. And I really think you're going to dig it. You can find us, dear listener, on Twitter at twitter.com/SF_fantasy_show. Again, SF_fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, where all the shenanigans happen, at facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, /groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. You can find us on our website at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where you can also support the podcast for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on. Or you can support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep Doc Cisca and Nick Garber duly intoxicated. They will drink until their liver surrenders. And if they were here, they would tell you they mamas didn't raise no quitters. So thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Nick Garber and Doc Cisca, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you for coming out, Jack. I know this was a tight schedule for you. We look forward to chatting with you later next month.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
All right.